The morning after, a Thomas Shelby story. Thomas lifted the woman's arm and threw it away from him. She stirred slightly with the movement, but remained asleep. As he stood up and walked to the window, Thomas reflected that he wasn't sure of her name. It could have been Elsie or Emma. It didn't matter. All he knew was she was expensive. He pulled open the curtains and picked up the pack of cigarettes and lighter he had left on the windowsill the night before. The view outside the hotel, as with everything, failed to inspire him. Birmingham looked as much of a shithole as ever, but the shithole belonged to him. All of it. Thomas glanced back at the woman on the bed. She had set a fire in his belly so much the previous night, yet now he couldn't wait for her to leave. As soon as he finished his cigarette, he would wake her. He checked the clock on the wall. 6:30. He had business at 8. Thomas finished his cigarette and threw the butt into a nearby ashtray. He then swept over to the bed and shook the woman roughly. She jerked awake. "Up," said Thomas. The woman looked momentarily annoyed, then her face smoothed out and she grabbed his arm lightly. "How about another go?" she said, looking directly into his eyes, a sly smile on her face. For a brief second, Thomas was tempted. Her soft skin reflected the sunlight pouring in through the window, and last night had been better than usual. "No," said Thomas firmly. "I have business." He began to pull his clothes on and added, "You can go now." The woman huffed loudly. She was a bold one, Thomas gave her that. Not a soul in the city didn't know who he was, and yet she had the daring to display her frustration to him. Maybe he would call on her again the next time he stayed in this hotel. Thomas shook his head. Now was not the time for women. He had meetings, problems that only he could deal with. He sighed. Another day as the king. Some days he didn't want to do it anymore. He had given away, or had taken from him, so many pieces of his soul, there was not much left for him to use. Every betrayal, every conflict, every loss had hardened him slightly. He was not so much a shell as a block of wood, unable to feel all but the hardest penetrations. His desires had become harder to fulfill. Even the most intriguing people held no power over him. He was interested in nothing, ambivalent about everything. Why did he continue? Habit, he supposed, and that small shred of hope that all humans possessed until the very end. The hope that things could, that he could, get better. The women he interacted with certainly seemed to think so. They all thought they could change him, save him. Let them try, he thought. Their efforts were useless, but their determination made them try all the harder to please him.